Well, hello everybody. Danny back from Deep South Homestead. Guys, I'm back in the sitting room today. The wind is blowing like 40 miles an hour out there, and I mean, it's bad. I mean, the wind is just it's ferocious. So I can't go outside to make this video. I'm having to sit in the sitting room. And guys, I wanted to take an opportunity today to talk about community again in a little bit of a way. And share with you some of the things we've had going on here at Deep South Homestead. Now, as y'all who watch us on a regular basis know, we here this past fall had gotten 2 pigs and brought them here, and Ms. Wanda named them this and that. Well, we were going to take the largest one back several months ago to the butcher and go ahead and get him out of the pen and let the other one be able to grow on up. Well, we got the loading system all set up, the chute and the trailer and everything, and the big one would not go in the chute. He literally refused to go in that chute. He would run his front feet up in there and he'd stop and come out. Run his feet in there and stop and come out. So the other one just ran right up in the trailer. And Juan and I looked at each other and we said, well, you know what? Let's just take that one on then. So we took that one on to the butcher. They did a fantastic job. Got him all cut up and wrapped for us and everything. We brought it back. Well, we've been so busy that we haven't had time to take the other one or do anything with him. Well, in the meantime, this other one, which was the largest one to begin with, is now up to, we're estimated around 400 pounds. He was getting way too big. So I told Wanda, I said, look, we got to get this thing to the butcher. And I backed the trailer up to the loading chute over there. And I figured, I said, well, we'll just open the gate. We'll just leave it open. And we'll put some feed up in the thing. I won't feed him. We'll put some feed up in the chute. He'll go up in the chute and get used to going into it. And then we'll move it into the trailer, over a couple of 3 or 4 days. Because we called the butcher and they said, just when we get ready, just bring him on when we get him caught. No big deal. So we figured, a couple of days we might make this happen. And look, we had real good friends come over. Mr. Dexter and his wife Cynthia and Devin and them came over, and he told me, he said, Mr. Danny, he said, marshmallows. He said, marshmallows will do it every time. I was like, okay. So Wanda and I had a bag of marshmallows here. We took the marshmallows over the first day and fed him some marshmallows, and boy, he just smacked down on them marshmallows now. I was like, yeah, this is going to be really nice, Well, we run out of marshmallows. We had to go to town and get some more when we went to mail off our Etsy's. So we came back, and we started trying to feed him marshmallows, and I just quit feeding him his other feed where he normally got fed at, and I put his feed up in this chute to load him with. Well, guys, it just wasn't in the cards. He would get started up in that chute, and he refused to go more than halfway through that chute. His food was less than 2 foot from him, and for 4 days, I tried to coax him with marshmallows, pecans, feed, slop, anything I could think of that might draw a pig up in there, corn, whatever. I cracked corn, all kinds of, I had it piled all in the trailer. I had it piled all in the chute, the end of the chute there. 4 days that pig laid there in that big pen and would go over there and look in that chute, and he wasn't going in there. Well, some real good friends of ours, Mr. Barrett and his son Bryce, heard me talking about this on one of our live shows one night. And they called me the next morning and said, Mr. Danny, we'll come over and help you get that pig in the pen and get him up in the trailer. And I told him, I said, well, he's not going in the trailer, I'm going to tell you. And, well, I believe we can do it, he said. I said, well, I have a lot to do, but if you want to come give it a try, I'm more than happy to. Because if we get him in there, he's gone. Well, they came over, and we kind of sit and looked at the situation and all, and we got him started up in the chute. He got almost completely in the chute, and Mr. Barrett grabbed the gate and tried to slam it behind him. Well, this 400-pound pig just out-pushed him and slid him across the ground and just pushed out of the gate and got out. Well, from that point forward, we knew pretty much he wasn't going back in that chute. So we made the decision at that moment. Barrett looked at me and told me, he said, Mr. Danny, he said, I know a man He's a really good man. Mr. Owl lives over there not far from me. He's got a cooler. If you want to, he said, me and Bryce will go ahead and we'll eradicate this pig for you and take him out, and we'll take him over there and we'll butcher him for you and hang him up, skin him out, hang him up, if that's what you want to do. I said, well, I don't know this man. You know, I don't know anything about him. And he said, I'm telling you, he's a good man. He said, matter of fact, let me call him. So Barrett got on the phone, called Mr. Owl, and Mr. Owl said, man, I'll fire the cooler up. He said, bring him on. I told Barrett and his son, I said, I'm busy, I can't go with you. He said, Mr. Danny, it don't matter. We got this. Well, they dispatched the pig for me, and I took my tractor and loaded him in the back of the truck, and they left with him. A couple of hours later, they come back bringing me the bacon off of it to start going ahead and running it through the process of curing it. Not all the bacon. They only brought part of the bacon back because it was so much. And I told him, I said, fine, I'll go ahead and start the curing process on this. And he said, we got the rest of it hanging in the cooler. He said, in 3 days, we like to let them hang 3 days. I said, that's fine with me because that's what I usually do anyway. Well, it just so happened that the 3rd day is the day, which is today, when all this severe weather's coming in. But luckily, it's coming in late in the evening now. But the wind is just ferocious outside. And I told him, I said, look, I don't mind doing this on Wednesday, but we got to do it early. Because that's a lot of stuff to have to do. And Barrett told me, he says, Mr. Danny, Mr. Owl's got all the setup. I'm telling you. You just meet us at his house. He gave me the address. It's about a 20-something minute drive from me. He said, we'll help you. I was like, well, what do I need to bring? He said, absolutely nothing except maybe a big giant ice chest because you're going to need it, you know. And I said, well, okay. But you know me, I went ahead and bought Ziploc bags. I bought all kind of stuff to take over there. Well, I got there and I actually met Mr. Owl and his wonderful wife, Miss Brenda. And I'm going to tell you what, guys, I was there like 10 minutes, me and Miss Wanda. And it's like we had been friends our whole life. These were the most courteous people I think I've ever met. And it just reassured me that there's people out there that's good-hearted, and it's a great community. And Mr. Owl looked at me and he said, Mr. Danny, he said, this is your pig, you're calling the shots here. He said, I'll just do whatever you tell me to do. I said, well, let me look at him. And he opened up his little homemade cooler there. He had a cool bot with an air conditioning unit, 34 degrees in there. It was perfect temperature. I said, well, let's put it this way. The pig was too big to cut in half and hang in halves because it only had a 7-foot ceiling, and the pig was over 7 feet long from his back legs down to the ground. So they had to cut the front shoulders and all that off of him and hang them separately. And the back legs and the rib section was still almost touching the floor. So I told myself, well, let's just get one of these sections off and throw it on the table and I'll show you what I want to do. And so we threw that thing up on the table, and I told him, I said, okay, I want to make a cut right here about a hip bone in the back. And he told me, he said, not a problem. We grabbed a knife, cut it, took a sawzall, sawed it off right there. I told Barrett and him, I said, you can clean this hind quarter up for me, make sure everything going is good, cut the fat off of it. We got a fat bucket over to the side here because we're going to be rendering lard out of this one. And me and Mr. Owl, we flipped it over and I cut all the bacon off of it that was on it. And I told him, I says, okay, rip the backbone section off right here is what I want to do. I want to cut it loose from this part right here. We did that. He asked me, he said, look, how thick you want your pork chops? You want to go ahead? We'll just do it all today, right here, if you want to do it. I said, well, I didn't bring nothing to... He said, it don't matter. I got vacuum packed bags. I got a vacuum machine. I got band saws. We got sausage stuffers. We got grinders. He said, we'll do it all right here if you want to do it. It'll be over with. And I didn't know what to say. I said, well, how much am I going to owe you for this? He said, you're not going to owe me nothing. I was just blown away at the courtesy of this person. Never had met him before. He had never met me before. And guys, let me tell you something. We went to sawing them pork chops up, 1/2 inch thick, throwing them out to the side, putting them back in the coolers, because that's a lot of meat to have to cut up. We had to keep putting it back in the cooler. And we got down to, I mean, Barrett and them was doing some of the trimming. I was cutting fat off the stuff, throwing it into things, and guys, it worked like a well-oiled machine. And we got all the pig cut up. We started taking pieces over to Miss Brenda and Miss Wanda, and they were cutting it up into, we call it grinding meat, I guess you would say. So they were doing that. Barrett and Bryce was cutting up grinding meat. Me and Mr. Al, we were cutting roasts and pork chops, and I mean, you name it. We were just cutting all this stuff up, and I was telling him, I said, look, you need this, you take this, and I'm going to give you all that. And I mean, we were going back and forth through it. And guys, we got there at 8 o'clock. At 12 o'clock, I was headed home. We had processed this whole pig. Ms. Wanda and Ms. Brenda had sit there. And Ms. Brenda was a wealth of knowledge. And Mr. Al, oh my gosh, y'all. This man knew so much. He taught me things about meat and about butchering and about a lot of other things. And showed me, I'm going to be doing some videos on some things that this man showed me here in the near future. Totally blew me away, and I'm like, boom, hit myself in the forehead. I'm like, wow, why hadn't I already thought about this? I mean, totally amazing things that they did. Miss Brenda showed the secrets to putting meat in, ground meat, into 1 pound bags without getting air in it where it gets freezer burned. She showed the secrets to all that, how all that's done. Exactly.
So I get a lot of ground meat out of those. So I get a lot of ground meat.
Sure, the pork hits the end of the bag, goes all the way across, and then you wiggle as you come back, stop, and that pushes the air out of it. Because if you have air in your meat, it's going to freeze or burn. All right, check our bones.
I heard everybody keeps wanting to buy
little
something.
bones.
I'm like, well, I don't know.
I feel a sharp bone right there.
I had a guy who was going to make some sausage
And
and wanted some. And I was like, okay, how much do you want?
Right there.
And he got to fold it.
These got to be folded.
We decided not to. I said,
Fold.
What?
I'm going to go under this way.
Mr. Al was showing me all kind of gadgets that he had built for farming and for using for vegetables and for corn cutting. I mean, cutting up sweet potatoes, all these kind of inventions he come up with, and I'm like, I'm going home and I'm building this stuff. But I'm going to give credit where credit's due. I'm not taking credit for this because this man is a genius when it comes to this kind of stuff. And he looked at me and he told me, he said, now Danny, because I told him I had extra cows and we was going to butcher some of them and stuff like that. He told me, he said, let me tell you something. He said, if you want to butcher one of them yearlings, you load him in the trailer, bring him over here. He said, we'll do it right here, beginning to end. You can hang him in this cooler for as many days as you want to hang him. And what do you say to that, to someone you've never met before, that's willing to open up their whole life to you and to help you out like that? They would not accept one dime from me. I did give them some pork. You know, we gave them pork. I said, here, take some of this, take some of that. You know, they like, well, okay, this and with that. And then they invited us to look at their house. I looked at Mr. Al and I said, I'll make you an offer on everything you've got here. And he laughed at me and he said, not a chance. And I told him, I said, oh, Mr. Al, I said, this is the most magnificent place I've ever seen. I mean, it's very secluded, stuck way back off in the woods. And I walked into his house and I looked around. It's all wood. Everything is wood. Guys, he had some boards on the wall for wall boards on his wall that were pine boards over 30 inches wide. I said, Mr. Owl, how? He said, found them online through a market bulletin. I'm like, wow. And he said, yep. He said, I built this whole house right by myself. Not a single soul helped me, except my wife. And I was like, wow. I looked at it. I mean, it's so, you felt so at home when you went in it. It was amazing. I mean, he took me into a back room in a hallway there, opened up, it looked like a sitting bench with an air conditioner in front of it, opened up a bench, and underneath that bench was all of his sweet potatoes. This man raises more sweet potatoes than I do. And here's this whole bench of sweet potatoes. He said, do you need some? Are you out, son? And I said, well, we've eaten all of ours. I said, we don't have any fresh ones anymore. And he come back, went in the house, another room, come back, toting a big old crawfish sack, because they're from Louisiana, and he does crawfish. He said, fill this whole crawfish bag full of them potatoes. He said, I got boxes of them left. And I'm like, Mr. Al, I can't do that. He said, take them. He said, and save some of them and make you some slips. He said, I've had these potatoes. He told me how many years. It was so many way back yonder. He said, this is the best sweet potatoes in the world. He said, they slick, they don't get stringy and all that kind of stuff, and dark red. He said, I eat sweet potatoes every day of my life. I said, well, so do I. And he said, well, I'm going to tell you what. He said, there ain't nothing no better. He said, son, load them up. I said, well, let me ask you something. Is that air conditioner being right in front of this the reason that air conditioner is in this hallway here? He said, yep. He said, in the summertime, if it starts getting too warm, we leave that AC on. He said, it keeps these taters cool in here, and the house stays cool. We kill two birds with one stone. And I was like, wow. I said, now that is thinking right there now. And I turned around and looked down that hallway, and both walls in that hall, all the way down it, was cast iron hanging on the walls. Any kind of cast iron you can imagine. I said, you've got Griswold here, you've got Lodge here, you've got, I said, oh my word. I mean, any one of them that you can think of, they had them hanging on that wall. He said, this is only part of it. He said, this is just what we've got hanging in the house. He said, we've got tons more of it. I mean, Dutch ovens, you name it. Griddles of all kinds. It just blew me away. Any kind of skillet, any. Then what blew me away is when I went into their kitchen, he said, look over there what I come up with. Guys, and I'm going to make one of these and I'll show on YouTube when I do. Something to hold all his wife's lids in, where they're arranged in order, and you don't have to lose your lids off your pots and stuff like that. I just looked at it, I said, Mr. Al, I said, how did you come up with that? He said, just sit down one day, son, and built it. And I was like, that's pure genius right there. So, guys, Wanda and I met Mr. Al and Miss Brenda for the first time in our life today. And it's like we have known them forever. He told me, he says, anytime you want to butcher anything, son, or hang in the cooler, or want to come over and use this equipment, he said, just give me a phone call and y'all come on. He said, we'll have a fun day. I felt so at home. I didn't even want to leave. I told him, I said, I know we got to get home and get this meat in our freezer, because they vacuum packed it and all for us. I mean, it was all stuffed, vacuum packed, ground, you name it. The pig was ready to go in the freezer when we got back to the house. I didn't know what to say. I was blown away at the courtesy. I told him, I said, you know what? We may be 20 minutes apart, but I'm going to consider you a neighbor and part of my community. And guys, let me say something. You know, we've got 200-something thousand subscribers. A lot of acquaintances. And we call this a community. But community was what Mr. Al and Miss Brenda and Barrett and Bryce showed us today. That's community. You don't just show up at somebody's house and become their best friend and expect that to be community. You've got to go the extra mile. Like Mr. Al and Miss Brenda, Barrett, Bryce, both of these people, both of these families gave up a half a day of their life to make this happen for me and Wanda. And as a result, me and Wanda found out something that they needed, and we're going to be taking it back to them. And guys, we created an extended community again. Even more people we brought into our community. So I wanted to do this video today. I know they don't watch YouTube, I don't believe. They might, I have no clue. But I want to thank them. I want to thank Barrett, because I know Barrett watches me and I know Bryce watches me. I want to thank them for introducing me to Mr. Al and his wife and allowing me to be part of Barrett's community. Because you see, each one of us have our own community. Barrett has his own community, even though he's part of my community, and I'm part of his now. He invited me into his community and people he knows because he trusts me, and I trust him. I trust his son, and his son trusts us. It's all about trust, and it's about friendship. How the old saying goes, he who hath friends must show himself friendly. Guys, you can't take advantage of someone and expect them to be a part of a community and to be a friend of them. And I just wanted to do this video today to let you guys know, hey, there's still good people out there in the world today that's as good as gold. These were godly people on top of that. They wasn't just the simple fact that they had a good heart. These are godly people. Miss Brenda actually sang for us, and I was like, this woman's got a beautiful voice. While she was working, she was just singing along, and I'm like, oh my word. I said, what a beautiful voice. Miss Wanda was like wanting to video her and all this kind of stuff, and I was like, I just blown away. And I mean, I want to take this time to thank the Lord for people like Barrett and Bryce introducing me to their friends, Mr. Al and Miss Brenda. I mean, I thank the Lord for people like that. And I just hope and pray that in the future, I can be as much of a blessing to them as they was to us today. So guys, if you want to have a community and you want to have friends, remember, you must first show yourself friendly. And you must be trustworthy. You can't just go out there doing something expecting somebody to give you something without having first been a friend to someone else or either to them. So thank you guys from Deep South Homestead.